Salutations and welcome everyone to the 2023 Kentucky Derby Fantasy Draft. I am joined by three of my best friends here in the horse racing world. I got my boys Barry, Gino, and Caleb all joining me today. Very excited to dive into what is sure to be a really fun Kentucky Derby Fantasy Draft. But before we get into the rules, fellas, how's everybody doing? And are we excited for Derby weekend? Gino, I know you got about 17 things going, but I know you're excited for this weekend, right?
Oh, yeah. And what's great about the Friday and Saturday, too, this year in particular, there's the combination of the stars coming back. We're seeing a lot of big name horses either like making their return to the races, their first start of the year, back from the Breeders' Cup or back from a big race, and then some awesome betting races all throughout the card. So lots of opportunity. I think there are 16 stakes races. I think 14 of them graded between the 2 days, including the big ones. So plenty of opportunities. And I'm looking to not only win a bunch of money, but win some bragging rights from my good friends right here.
Well, last year we had quite the situation because we held the draft, and then I think it was Ethereal Road dropped out of the race and was scratched. And I went to my man Barry Spears, who had drafted Ethereal Road, and said, Barry, listen, you can take a 0 on the scratch, or you can take this AE horse, Rich Strike. And he said, give me Rich Strike. And Barry took that all the way to victory. So, Barry, you ready to defend this? Yeah, you ready to defend your championship this year?
I'm trying. It's going to be hard from the 4 spot, but I think we can do it. We can do it.
I love it. Caleb, you got the number one post position in the number one draft slot this time around. How are you doing? And are you looking forward to this weekend? And a lot of great horses, obviously.
Yeah, doing well. Definitely looking forward to the weekend. Haven't gotten to probably sink my teeth into some of Friday's card as much as I would have liked yet. So that's something that's kind of still on my to-do list, I guess, sometime tonight and tomorrow after work. So I'm playing a little bit of catch up, but I have certainly made it a priority to check out the Derby and make sure that I can get some redemption for last year. So looking to either take it down or at least just steal your picks that you published earlier.
Yeah, well, last year we did this for each leg of the Triple Crown with the Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont. With the Preakness and the Belmont, we merged the Black-Eyed Susan and the Acorn to kind of have larger field sizes together. I managed to have the dubious distinction of never winning and never finishing last, which means I was just good enough not to be the worst, but never really get close to contention at all. I felt like, a horse running, third place to Charge It in the Dwyer, 27 lengths back, but third place. So listen.
Well, you see, because what I did is I finished poor and I was able to trade my pick to get up to second this year. So,
negotiations.
So if you're right in the middle, like you think about it, you always just want to tank. You'd rather be really bad than be right in the middle, right? Because then you're just going to be about 500 every single year.
Exactly. It's tough. It's tough. So
now I get a lottery pick.
Yeah, absolutely. So, let's go over the rules real quick for people who might be tuning in for the first time. This year's fantasy draft, it's pretty straightforward. We got 20 horses in the field. There's 4 of us. I'm not a math major, but I know how to do some basic division, and that means each person is going to get 5 horses in their stable. So we have a 5-round snake draft. It's going to loop back around. So it's going to go Caleb, Gino, myself, and Barry, and then loop back around in the second round, Barry, myself, Gino, and then Caleb, and back around the other way. How do we determine who ends up winning? Pretty straightforward. We're going to use modified stable duel scoring. In a 20-horse field, we're going to add some points in the top end, extend this out a little bit. But basically, you get points for finishing 1st through 8th. There is going to be points added for the margin of victory. So if a horse wins by, let's say, 5 lengths, or 6 lengths and pulls a Barbaro who's right over my shoulder, they would get 96 points, okay? Now, if a horse finishes 2nd, they would get 70 points, but you deduct the margin of defeat. So if they lose by 6 lengths, that 70 turns into 63 points, etc. So that's the way it's going to work 1st through 8th, and there are points deducted for horses that finish 9th through 20th, just in terms of the number of lengths they're defeated by, with the maximum negative point total of 30 points. So even if a horse just kind of is, pulls up, walks home. I know Barry, your boy Chuck Simon always says about 7 horses just walk home in the Kentucky Derby. So if that happens,
he
they
was
finish
right last year.
He really
I think
was.
I had 4 of them.
Yeah, you want to stay away from those negative numbers, and so that's the key. And as I mentioned in the intro, if a horse does happen to scratch between now and post time, I'll reach out to the player who's selected that horse and ask if they want to take a 0 or if they want to use the AE, which in this case would be Cyclone Mischief. So The rules are pretty straightforward. If you play Stable Duel, you know exactly what to do. But with that being said, we're going to just get into drafting. Caleb, I'm going to put the floor is yours. You have the first pick in the draft. Who are you going to take?
All right. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I was actually hoping not to get the first pick because the horse that I like to win the Derby, I think would be there in 3-4 kind of turn. And I'd like to maybe take 2 shots instead of 1. But with that being said, if I'm picking first overall, I'm picking the horse that I think wins the Derby. And I'm not choosing to necessarily play it with a safe horse that I think might be more likely to hit the board. So I'm going out to our friends in the Far East with the 0 for $1 billion 17 post Derma Sotogake. This is a horse that I've been just incredibly impressed with from his UAE Derby victory. And I know a lot of folks tend to discount the UAE Derby shippers given their record in this race. But I think that that's probably a mistake in this instance. If you watch that race, it looked visually impressive the way he drew off through the lane. He showed a new dimension in that race by going to the lead where he's not a proven front runner by any stretch. He is very tactical. And the raw time of that race was incredibly fast, 7.44 seconds faster than the Dubai World Cup later on that card. And even if you say that was a slower running of the Dubai World Cup, that is a massive gap. That was an incredibly fast race by Derma Sotogake. I think that this race kind of lacks some pace, so he could find himself forward in that first flight of horses. And while I have respect for the shorter prices, the Fortes, the Tapit Trices, and whoever else, if I'm picking first, I'm swinging for the fences with my boy Derma Sotogake.
I love it. I love everything about it. In the chat, we've had some over-unders going on. My boy El Hombre was asking whether or not Derma was going to be the first or second pick, basically. And then your colleague said, listen, it's over. Caleb's going to take it.
Mark knows my thoughts on Derma.
And so Derma, listen, I was super high on him. I still think that might have been the most impressive Derby prep performance that we saw all season. That UAE Derby could not have looked better. Well, listen, you're off the board now with the first pick in the draft. Gino, you're up. Second pick, first round. Who are you going to take?
Yeah, and I'll tell everybody that for me, it was completely deciding between 2 horses. Do you play it safe? Do I go with a horse like with Forte, the horse who's really safe, who, a lot of people like, you can't really knock him. That's just not who I am. That's just not who I am. We got the no chalk zone.
We do.
And I figured at the second spot, any of the top tier contenders, I'll probably be able to get one of them to fall back in my lap on the way there. So I'll probably be able to get a horse of the top choices on the way back. But here I'm going to go to a horse who, if you would have asked me a couple weeks ago, I probably wouldn't have been all that high on, but I've really warmed up to him. I want to make sure I have him. I think it would be I think it would be pretty cool if he wins. I'm going to go 2 fills.
Ooh.
I'm going 2 fills for my first pick off the board. I think a lot of people are going to just say he's a synthetic horse, but if we're looking at figures and stuff, he got a big figure last time out. He won impressively. We've seen horses come from synthetic. It's not as if he's a horse who couldn't stand up on the dirt. He was fine on the dirt. He ran some really good races there. He took the lead a couple starts back and then just faded and tired a little bit. I think he's trending in the right direction. A lot of positives about how he's coming into the race. I wanted to make sure I got him on my team for sure. So you know what? 2 fills. I think you got to always ready to be call an audible. I wasn't married to anyone this year for a long time. Right? I wasn't. Some people have their Derby horse a long time in advance, a horse they've been following. This was one of the least strong opinions or the most set I was on anyone this year. I'll probably be using a lot in exotics. I wanted Phil on my squad.
I love it. I love it. No, those 2 are 2 of my favorite horses. I mean, just 2 awesome storylines. I think Larry Ravelli and Jareth Loveberry making their first Kentucky Derby. Caleb mentioning the Japanese winner, potentially Derma Sotogake being breaking all sorts of history, the 17 post, UAE Derby, Japan, etc. So I'm in the very unusual position of drafting third. The morning line favorite is just sitting right there for me, looking me in the face. But listen, I need to have some respect. I mean, much like Gino, this is the no chalk zone. So, I am going to swing for the horse that I have as my top pick, and that is Angel of Empire. Nice. I am a Pennsylvania bred myself, and so I am all in on this Brad Cox colt. I think this is a horse that is only getting better. better. The speed figures are trending in the right direction. That correlates with this horse stretching out. I think this horse has more tactical speed than people are giving it credit for. This is not a horse that is a dead closer like a Red Route 1 that we saw during the Kentucky Derby prep season. This is a horse that can sit 3, 4, 5 lengths off the pace and then make a move. I think when it comes time to turn for home, this is a horse that's going to have more than enough left in the tank. Really like Angel Empire. Brad Cox, listen, we've talked all Derby prep season about this fleet of horses he has, and it's so interesting that Angel of Empire was one of the kind of least thought of early in the prep season, but has emerged as perhaps the best of his Derby prep horses. So I'm going to go with Angel of Empire as my top selection. Barry, this takes it over to you, and I have a feeling that we can all get our top choice and not have any issues here.
Yeah, I think we all did that. Although Caleb's choice was like tied with my, I had 2 horses that I really wanted. He took one of them. So I'll have to go with my choice, which is number 10, Practical Move. I think this horse has he's a lot better than he's getting credit for, and I don't understand why people aren't higher on him. I mean, I tend to use buyer speed figures quite a bit, and he paired up hundreds, and nobody else really in the field has done that on dirt. There's a couple close. I think Tapatrice 99 was the second fastest. But this horse ran 2 bang-up races since going long. He's done nothing wrong since he's stretched out to over a mile. He's getting better. I think he doesn't even have to get that much better to win this race. I think a 101, 102 buyer will probably win this race, and it's not too far of a leap for him.
There you go. You get Practical Move with your first selection in the first round, but now you get to go right back again. Who's your first pick in the second round, Barry? You got back-to-backs.
This was really, 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 really tough to come up with a second horse, because this field isn't as deep as as we would normally see.
Yeah.
So with that being said, and this is going to be my throwdown field. I'm going to take Continuar.
Whoa!
That
is.
I love this.
And the reason being is, he just finished a nose behind Derma back in November.
El Hombre called this, by the way. El Hombre called Continuar getting picked early. So,
I everybody's, just down on him because of that one workout, and again, me being the opposite, it was just a workout. It wasn't the race. I can forgive that. It doesn't even matter to me, to be honest with you. He's run good behind Derma pretty much every time they faced off.
Yeah.
And if you want to go back to when Funny Side won, he finished behind Empire Maker a few times.
Yeah.
Before the big one, and he beat him. I people are like, oh, the post is 20. None of that matters to me. I think this horse is pretty decent.
Yeah.
And he's going to be a huge price.
I love it. Yoshida Yahagi, 2 Breeders' Cup championships 2 years ago at Del Mar. I mean, he's a championship trainer. I mean, that's the point that I've always made about Continuar, is he's got as good a group of people around him as any horse in this field, in terms of the trainer and the connections and the handlers, etc. So Continuar, huge throwdown field. Love this. I mean, you guys.
Well, you know what?
Gino
What was great
Gino Barry
is that
always make me feel like I am.
like Caleb
the biggest
started it
chalky
with
player.
a good. Like I was gonna say, Caleb started it, and then we all just felt pressured afterwards.
This is all the strategy. It's the mind game.
To not go right into the chalk. And it's funny now we come back around. It's just great. So
I love it. Well, listen, there's a point where we're at a point where I'm now up with my first pick in the second round. And this is one where I look at the board and I can't ignore the favorite anymore. I'm going to select Forte here because he's just too logical, especially in a stable dual structure. I've seen a lot of people compare him to Epicenter. I've seen a lot of people compare him to Essential Quality.
Can I ask you a question? Have you heard that? And I was just watching Andy Beyer is dead set that it's Fort. Right.
That's
Well,
hysterical.
I think it is.
Yeah,
but the
and it's telling
connections-
us all, like
I
that.
think
And I was like,
Napoli-
I've never said it besides Forte. Anything
Yeah, I
but.
think
I've
Napoli
never-
says it that way, and that's everybody goes with Forte instead of Fort, but it
I-
should be Fort technically.
I remember, but there was a conversation about like that it should be Tapit Trice at some point. And get the hell
Yeah,
out of here.
yeah.
No,
It's Forte and it's Tapit Trice, and that's the way we're pronouncing it. And if we're, I'm sorry that we, this is ridiculous.
Well,
we're not
you
changing
wanna-
the horse's pronunciation now.
You want to
So-
tease my next pick? Because that was mine.
Let me just finish up on Forte. And let me just say, in this sort of structure, I think Forte makes a ton of sense in terms of the points because I just don't see this horse running a bad race. He's just super consistent. I am concerned that he's declined a little bit as a 3-year-old from a speed figure standpoint. He's a really gutty horse. I mean, that victory at the Florida Derby, he had every reason to just call it in and not win that race, and he ended up winning it. Now, I don't know how good the rest of that competition was in terms of Mage and Cyclo Mischief. Your mileage may vary there, but this is a horse that is, the champion 2-year-old trying to repeat not repeat, but become the first champion 2-year-old to come back and win the Kentucky Derby since Nyquist in 2016. So, obviously some history to overcome there, but I'll take Forte. I'll eat some chalk. Gino, goes to you. I think you're going to be eating a little bit of chalk now as well.
I am also too. Yeah. Now we took our shot. We come back around. The thing about Tapit Trice, I did like the way he seemed like he matured in his last race because he's quirky. He may be his own worst enemy, but he may also be one of those horses that has a little bit of a ceiling that we don't know because he is sort of been a little bit immature. If he can just continue to stay focused and take another step forward, it seemed like he had multiple gears. Like that was the race Verifying was supposed to win.
Yeah.
He got the jump on him. He got the perfect trip. Like he's supposed to finish the job there. So that impressed me. Before that race, I wouldn't have been as high on Tapit Trice, but now not necessarily he's going to be one of my top picks or a horse I would bet to win, but I do think he will run well. And I do think there's a really good chance that he's like got one of the best A games if everybody showed up with their best performance.
Absolutely. A super high ceiling type of a horse. If we just got done with the NFL draft, this is a very, spider chart type of athlete, right? He's got those intangibles. He's got the metrics. He would crush it at the NFL combine. I mean, just from a pure standpoint of like athleticism and talent, he might be the most talented horse in this field. And that is going to be Gino's selection in the second round. Caleb, coming back around to you. Been a minute since we heard your selection. So now you got back-to-back. Who do you like here? Last pick in the second round.
Yeah, I was hoping that maybe one of the, horses like, oh my goodness, I forgot the name. But, one of the horses would slip back to me that was selected a little, Two Fills, that's what it was. That was selected way earlier, but you guys are too sharp. So, so with my pick in the second round, I'm actually going to go to a horse that I think is a bit of an outsider in here. But someone mentioned him in the chat, I believe, which is the horse Disarm, number 11.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a horse that only has one win and does have 3 starts so far as a 3-year-old. But really the race that kind of draws me to Disarm is that Louisiana Derby effort. Because as we all know, that was a race that had a very, very slow pace where Kingsbarn got everything his own way on the lead. And it was just almost impossible to make up ground over a surface that tends to skew towards speed anyway at the fairgrounds. I thought Disarm was, or maybe not the best horse in the race, but he maybe ran the best race to come from 6 lengths and was the only horse to really make up any meaningful ground in that race. And then he needed the points to make the gate here. Connections pointed him to the Lexington. And I'm not convinced that was, they were really having this horse at 100%. He was there to run third, to get enough points to make the gate. And I think he did just enough, to get to the position he's in today. I love the jockey change back to Rosario. I think he really fits this horse, a horse who kind of wants to just save ground, make one run. And if I'm looking for a jockey to take a horse that I don't think is good enough to win and to have him outrun his odds at a big price and clunk up and hit the board, I think Disarm is a horse that kind of fits that profile. So for my second round pick, I'm going with Disarm to try to get a piece.
Love it. Love it. And you're right. Joel, when he's on a long shot, always clunks it up. It's when Joel's on a favorite that we got to worry about him.
That's the trick.
That is the trick. So, all right. Well, now it comes back around to you again in the third round. So who are you going to take in the first pick of the third round?
Yeah, so this is a tricky pick for me. I'm truthfully in between 2 horses. that I like pretty similarly. One of whom I think has probably more win upside. The other is maybe a bit of a safer play. I'm going to take the upside shot in here because I think that Disarm maybe is more of a safer clunker. So I'm going to go with a little more of a risky pick here with the number 8 Mage. This is a horse who I think is incredibly talented. And if the horse was a little more seasoned and had a little bit more of a foundation, I'd probably be quite a bit higher on this horse. The fact that he only has 3 starts and that he's shown that he has some issues getting out of the gate is the reason I've kind of downgraded him down here to my 3rd round selection. But there's no doubting the ability and the talent that Mage has. I mean, he's a very nice horse. He came out poorly last time and ended up essentially last. But in his prior 2 starts, he was very forwardly placed, including when he wired a sprint race at Gulfstream in his maiden breaker. So I think this is a horse that really has a lot of ability. And if you could ever just put it together, I think he could run a big race in here. Now, the question is, you don't really want the Kentucky Derby to be the race that you're asking your horse to put it all together. That's a big ask. But at the point we are in the draft, I don't know that I see too many other horses, I think, that have legitimate win upside. So I'm going to take a shot with Mage here to give me what I think is a second low percentage, but possible win candidate here. And if he can just get a clean trip, then I still like his chances to run up in the money.
Love it. All right. Well, the picks are going fast and furious. We're through almost half the field. Gino, this is the halfway point of the draft, the 10th overall pick, second pick in the 3rd round. Who do you take here?
You know what I did when the experts at the draft get the pick before? I just tweeted my pick out as the number 10th pick.
It's like Sham. It's like Sham in the NBA.
Shams and Woj, they're trying to beat each other to it to see who got the pick. So
you need that noise, the noise. Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. So
at the NBA draft.
If you want to follow along, also, I put out a recap of picks 1 through 10. I put mine at number 10. I put Skinner for number 10.
There you
go. This
is
a horse who I've been following along, and I've been waiting for him to get into a bigger field with more pace in just a more favorable situation for him. Now, the Kentucky Derby is not always favorable for a lot of horses. It may not be for Skinner, but he's the type of horse who I would really love to see get the chance to just sit back and then press the button and make a run. And I do like Juan Hernandez coming aboard him. I really think he'll get a good ride. If you don't know Juan Hernandez, this guy over the winter and into the early part of the year this year, he dusted a jocks room at Santa Anita that had Flavian Pratt, Frankie Dettori, Johnny Velasquez all in it. And he was by far the leading rider and would regularly just have multiple win days against a really strong jocks room. I love the way he's been training also. He looks really, really good. Skinner for me is the play. I think he snuck into this race because he was on the outside looking in. He needed a little bit he needed some defections in order to get in, and now he's going to be in. I've got Skinner at 10.
All right, there you go. Our friend Sean Nolan says this could be the steal of the draft right there. I will say he was higher than 10 on my board as well, and probably would have been my pick if you had not selected him there. So now it's the time for me to recalibrate a little bit. And I think it's interesting. Like Caleb, I kind of have 2 horses that I'm trying to decide between, and one has kind of a lot more upside, and one has maybe a little bit of a safer play. But considering who I have in my first 2, I'm gonna take a shot, and I'm gonna hope that Keith DeSormo is crazy like a fox, and I'm gonna take Confidence Game with my 3rd round selection. This horse has not been seen since winning the Rebel, which was one of the more impressive efforts, sitting from off the pace and then making a pretty dynamic move, which was not in this horse's repertoire leading up to that point. This horse typically needed the lead to have any chance at winning. Obviously, really like the moisture in the ground that day as well. Candy Ride Colt. And our good friend on social media, Marshall Graham, who is everybody's favorite meteorologist / horse player, has said that there's supposed to be up to an inch of rain in Louisville between Friday and Saturday night. So could be some moisture in the ground. We will have to see. But I just think it's so interesting the route that this horse has taken, skipping the final round of preps and then posting an 8 furlong workout followed by a bullet 5 furlong workout. I mean, everybody on track says this horse looks amazing. I'm going to take them at their word. I really like this horse coming out of the Rebel. I know our mutual friend Sarah Obadwi is really high on this horse as well. I'll take a shot with Confidence Game here in the 3rd round. Call me crazy. We'll see what ends up happening. Barry, it goes to you for back-to-back picks now in rounds 3 and 4.
Thanks a lot, crazy. I'm calling you crazy. See how
I love it. I love it.
I definitely, I'm crazier than you, so
Yeah.
you
Crazy
know
like a
how that
straw.
rolls. Exactly. So now that we're here, I'm gonna go with the bookends. I'm gonna
I'll
take
do it.
Hit Show.
Wow. Okay.
Nice.
I'm taking the outside and the inside. But
Nice.
I think Hit Show was compromised last time by the post. He was out
Yeah.
in the 12 hole, ended up running a really good race and just got nailed. And I'm totally convinced that it was because of the post position. Not saying that this is even better post position because it's actually worse. But I think he can get it done because of his running style. He doesn't need the lead. I
Mhm.
think he can sit a good trip, and get some good position, because if he kind of follows Verifying,
Mhm.
who I think might kind of get out there, because I don't see, I think this pace is going to be honest, not super quick, not super slow. He could work out a decent trip here. So I'm gonna take him,
Love it.
because I think he's a stayer too. I think this horse can run all day.
Yeah.
He just needs to catch a break post position wise, but I think he's going to run well, and definitely a top 8.
Love it. Well, that's positive points in stable
That's
duels.
right.
So, and I
Yeah.
will say a gutty horse too. I mean, trying to split Lord Miles and Dreamlike in that Wood Memorial, that's never an easy move, and showed a lot of guts going through a tough spot there. And he's been, by all accounts, also looking really good on the workout track down there at Churchill Downs. So now that you've wrapped up the 3rd round, Barry, start us off with the top of the 4th round.
Oh, man, you guys, this is tough, man. I'll never wish the 4th spot on anybody.
Because you got the turn. Yeah, it's tough.
But I think I'm going to have to go with a horse that I think is going to be forwardly placed, and kind of on the upswing, and I'm going to take Verifying here too.
I was going to go there next. Yeah, if not.
I think he has enough positional speed to get himself in a good spot. And I'm not sold on him actually trying to get to the front.
Want to sit right behind, maybe, right?
Yeah, I think he's going to concede to Jace's Road and kind of stalk, which would be perfect. Whether he can get that distance, I mean, Justified did, remains to be seen. But I'll give him a shot here.
Love it. So Verifying, I mean, certainly, I think it's so interesting to me that I think people's opinions of Tapit Trice and Verifying are directly correlated. Like the people who are high on Tapit Trice are also high on Verifying, and vice versa.
But I can give you a caveat to that.
Well,
I don't like Tapit Trice at all.
Oh, that's great.
He's not on any of my tickets. I'm not going to use him at all.
No, and I think there's caveats to the Tapit Trice thing, but
I can understand that if you think
yeah.
Verifying can maybe just be more forwardly placed and keep himself out of trouble,
Yeah.
right? Like if that's your reasoning
that's
my
reasoning.
Then that's totally legitimate.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's interesting when you started talking about picking a horse that's going to be forwardly placed on the upswing a little bit. I thought you were going to take my selection, and that's going to be Kingsbarns. That's a horse that also is going to be forwardly placed. Caleb, you mentioned earlier a horse that did kind of absolutely get his own way at that Louisiana Derby. 116-3, I want to say, opening 6 furlongs. I mean, just crawling up front. But what impressed me that day was that when he hit the afterburners, he just pulled away from the rest of that field and didn't really have any problems doing so, and just kind of really pulled away from Jace's Road. There were horses like Instant Coffee that I think we at one time had pretty highly ranked in our Derby prep rankings, and things like that in the field, and just really made them look silly. So Kingsbarns is a horse that is, Gino, to your point, is going to stay out of trouble. I think he's going to be forwardly placed. He's not going to get too mixed up. He's got an inside post position in number 6. He's not going to be, strung wide. He should have a relatively decent trip on the front end, which is historically where you want to be in the Kentucky Derby. You want to be in that front pack of, 4, 5, 6 horses. Rich Strike and Mind That Bird are amazing, but they're anomalies, and they tend to kind of be the exception that proves the rule. So I'll take kind of the third of the 3 Todd Pletcher horses and Kingsbarns as my selection in the 4th round. And Gino, this puts you up on the clock with your pick in round number 4.
Yeah, I'm realizing as I pick this horse, my team has like no speed, very little speed. Because I'm just gonna need like an absolute meltdown for most of them. Well, most of them should pass horses.
Yes,
That's a positive in this situation. But yeah, because I really was gonna hope to get verifying on the swing back, and I felt like he would at least be that horse to be like forwardly placed of my group. But now, sort of looking around, and of the horses that I like,
no, there's still one left, I think.
But of the horses that I like, I'm not really, I don't think that high on some of them. Here's who I'm going to go with. One that I don't think any of you would even pick, to be honest. Sun Thunder. Sun Thunder is a horse who, if you're a trip player, 3 races in a row, this horse has had some legitimate trouble. He actually ran a bang-up race in the Risen Star, and I like Two Fills a little bit. He beat Two Fills in that race, and that was a very productive prep race because the winner, Angel of Empire, came back to win the Arkansas Derby. The 3rd place finisher, Two Fills, went out of that to win at Turfway, and so they both won big prep races out of that. Sun Thunder in the Louisiana Derby, he got caught behind Disarm. And if you watch the race, and if you think Disarm maybe had a little bit of trouble and you kind of like Disarm, they both had the same sort of trouble. It was kind of like a domino effect. Disarm was stopped and Sun Thunder was right behind him and he never got a shot. So if you kind of play his speed figures as they were trending and you can give him one more jump up, same thing happened last time. He didn't get a great trip. He was shuffled back and then the top 2 just separated. Yeah. And I know a lot of people won't like when horses get equipment changes in the Derby, but the thing is, I wouldn't like it if it was a favorite.
Right.
If this is a horse like this who can maybe get a little bit of focus and have some upside that people don't see on the paper because the blinkers can give him a little more forward, like a little more speed, a little more tactical speed.
Yeah.
Give me Sun Thunder.
I love it. I love it. And I love that you're just going all in on like no speed horses at all. Now you're just all in on deep closers. And so, you know your team identity, right? Know your team identity. Love it. Caleb,
I'm going to be out there riling horses up just to make sure the pace is fast in the paddock.
I love it. All right, Caleb, you are up with your 4th and 5th and final selection. So where are we going to go with these last 2 picks for your team?
Oh yeah, we're kind of at that point of the draft where it's last call at the bar, and you kind of look around, and it ain't pretty out there. But
beer goggles engaged.
Closing time.
I'm gonna go with a horse. There's no one left I really feel strongly about, so I'm gonna kind of take 2 horses here that are actually exiting the common race. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna start with the number 7 Reincarnate. This is not a horse that I think particularly highly of, but this is a horse that has run some good races. Now, the best races he's run were typically under Bob Baffert's care. And I told myself I wasn't going to draft a Yakteen horse after I had Messier and Tybell and everything last year. And that didn't go well. But at this point in the draft, I do think he offers an advantage over a number of the other horses that are left. Because with Johnny Velasquez up, I mean, say what you will about the pace of this race, there's a chance this horse gets the lead. I mean, some people think it's Chase's Road. Some people think it may be Verifying. Yeah, I don't know for sure that Reincarnate gets the lead, but I think Johnny V is going to give an aggressive ride. And I think that could be, to this horse's benefit because he just seems to run better when he is forwardly placed. I thought he had very legitimate trouble in the Rebel in a race that was also ran over the slop, where he had to basically stop his run dead in the turn and then kind of re-rally out wide, and did make a nice run to prove that he can pass some horses. I don't know that he's good enough to do this. I don't know that Yakteen is going to be able to turn his form around, as it does seem like he's perhaps tailing off a little bit and just not quite good enough compared to Angel of Empire and a few others. But he's one that I think should get a good trip. Yeah. And sometimes that's enough to get a piece in the Derby.
I hear you on that, and I'm pretty sure I know where you're going with your final selection because there's only one other horse that was in that same race as Reincarnate last time, and that's a Bill Mott horse that's getting an equipment change. So why don't you talk a little bit about Rocket Can?
Yeah, Rocket Can. It's funny actually that I'm drafting this horse because Josh and I have a bourbon bet that no horse from the Holy Bull would make the Derby gate, and this is the
boy.
lone hope for him to win a bottle of bourbon off of me. So I feel like if he makes the gate, at least I can root for him to run okay if I take him on my team here. So
there you go.
Rocket Can, again, he's a horse that showed some promise. He ran a decent second to Forte, 2 back in the Fountain of Youth.
Yeah.
And then it's hard to really explain what happened in that Arkansas Derby. He just didn't really show up. Obviously the blinkers going on is not traditionally a positive sign, as mentioned earlier. But again, you're talking about a horse that's 30-1 in here. He's not going to get bet. And he moves forward. He should have somewhat forward positioning. He could be taking the lead, turning for home before potentially getting run down late, because he does kind of have that tractable run style. So he's a horse that I don't think is a likely win candidate, but he's a horse that typically always shows up and runs an okay race. Yep. And I think he makes some sense at this point.
I hear you. I'm a fan of this horse. I like him as a horse. I don't necessarily, obviously I didn't draft him yet, so how much do I really like him?
Yeah, I was going to say, 3 horses left, Matt.
Yeah.
Really, just be fair here.
No, it's like when, it's like when a team drafts a guy in the 7th round. Oh, we really liked him a lot. Well, you had 6 other rounds to draft guys. So you didn't like him that much.
Yeah, but he was high on my board.
He was high on our board. But what I'll say is, he's a horse that I've, said this a few times. I look forward to him running at like 4 and 5 years old. Hopefully, like he's just a horse I think that will get better as he kind of runs in the handicap division, and maybe some of these other horses drop out and go to the the stud barn and things like that. But I don't know if he's exactly like Skippy Longstocking, but he just feels like a horse that's going to like kick around grade 2, grade 3 races as like a 4 and 5 year old baby. And I have a soft spot for those types of horses. So
yeah.
But Caleb, your team is wrapped up. Gino, we're going to go to you for your final selection here for your team in the 5th round.
Yeah, I would have picked him next. So Caleb, he was definitely on my radar for this last round. This next pick is great because I will give him some credit, which he'll love. But then if this horse does not run well, I can absolutely blame it on my good friend Andrew Champagne. Lord Miles, he's going to love this. He's going to love the fact that we're talking about him right now. I know he will. But Andrew Champagne thought that Lord Miles had a real shot to win the Wood Memorial. And Lord Miles did at 60-1. And the thing about him, at least he's moving in the right direction. Like, he's an improving horse. This is a big step up for him. But I don't know, like a couple of the others maybe not moving forward right now. They may have already hit their peak. Mm-hmm. I think this horse is going to keep getting better. So where we are now at this point of the draft, and then if he doesn't run well, I can blame it on Andrew. It's all Andrew's fault. So it's a win-win for me, really, because then I can say, dude, Andrew, look, I gave you credit, man. Look at what a great friend I am to you. Like, I talked about you and everything, and then, come Saturday afternoon, it's like, you son of it just quickly changes.
Well, and then you can do what we always like to joke. You can blame it on the champagne, which is what I tend to do. You pop up, and so, Lord Miles. It's interesting. That's probably where I would have actually gone with my selection with this, because you said, like, at least he's improving and he's got the pedigree to suggest he can run for days. I mean, with that curling up top. So you'd think at least, he'll keep running. I mean, he might not finish very high, but he's not going to kill you maybe. Well, Barry and you and I are left with some interesting choices here at the bottom of the draft. And no matter how well I think I've drafted to this point, I'm looking at a negative 30 square in the face, I think, with these two. The two that are left are obviously Raised Cane and Jace's Road. This is really hard for me to select between these two.
The noises are funny. I just wish we could have just
yeah, it's just the consternation in my voice here as I'm trying to select this. I guess I'm gonna go. Shoot. I'll go with Jace's Road. I'll go with Jace's Road is what I'm gonna end up doing. So I don't think he's very good. He'll be on the lead. Maybe they soup the track up. Maybe it really holds front end speed pretty well. Hard to think that this horse is going to be there at the end, but maybe he doesn't have a total pace collapse. If the pace is not super hot, we'll see. Barry, you and I were talking before we started recording, if they're more deliberate with getting to the lead, if Florent Giroux's a little bit more aggressive there than they were in the Louisiana Derby, where I think they tried to, as we were talking about, be cute and kind of sit off of Kings Barnes, maybe there's a shot. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of either horse, so I can't make a huge case one way or the other, but I'll take, I don't even know. Who did I just say? Oh, Jason's Road. That's who I took.
Exactly.
You're trying to block it from your memory already.
Exactly.
I don't even know who that is.
Yeah. So, Barry, do you want to talk at all about Raise Cane in this case?
Plotter could get 8th. Probably not. But he's on my team.
He's on your team. Indeed, he is.
He tries hard.
And so I am pulling up our teams here in a second because I've been, kind of keeping track of this the whole time. And we have for Caleb's team, Derma Sotogake, Disarm, Mage, Reincarnate, and Rocket Can. For Gino's team, we have 2 Phils, Tappet Trice, Skinner, Sun Thunder, and Lord Miles. For Barry's team, we have Practical Move, Continue R, Hit Show, Verifying, and Raise Cane. And my team is Angel of Empire, Forte, Confidence Game, Kings Barnes, and Jace's Road. So those are the selections as we took them. Gentlemen, how do you feel about your teams? Gino, I know you're going to be out trying to get some people really moving that pace a little bit faster up front. So yours can come
I'm calling
home.
a few jocks. I'm calling in any favors that I've got from anyone. Say, don't you need to get your horse a little more forwardly placed up there? Make sure you need to be a little closer, stay out of trouble, and then hopefully everybody's staying out of there. But yeah, I need some chaos on Saturday. That's what I need.
Nothing wrong with that. How's everybody else feel? Caleb, you got your top pick with Derma. Feeling good about your team?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very confident Derma's going to run a good race, so I'm happy to have him. The Mage Skinner debate was one I internally went over about 100 times before settling on Mage. So that's the one that I might be kicking myself if Skinner runs a big one, but otherwise feeling pretty good.
And then Barry, you got your boy out in California, Practical Move, and feeling pretty good about that.
Yeah, because the Practical Move Continue Our Exacta is in full effect here.
That kind of hurt my feelings a little bit, Matt. I thought I was Barry's boy out in California, and you really made me feel sad for a second. I was like, oh, it made me, and then I just got deflated for a second. I was like, oh, not me, I guess.
So here's everyone's teams, just so we can see them all side by side and see the round that they were selected in. The Mage Skinner debate is so interesting, Caleb, that you brought that up. Because these are 2 horses that when I just did my rankings that I released were smack dab right next to each other. And even though they're very different types of horses, one is more of a closer, one's a little bit more forwardly placed, as you mentioned with Mage, they do feel like the same type of horse in some way, that they both could be sitting on monster races.
I would have picked Mage if Caleb didn't in the very next pick when I picked Skinner. They were on my short list after the top couple. I absolutely would have. You're right. They just feel like they're in that same sort of tier of horses, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I feel like they have the exact same chance to win, and even though they might get there in different ways, they both present really good upside, I think.
Yeah, I have to admit, though, I didn't have the same person getting Angel of Empire and Forte on my bingo card.
I know, honestly, Matt, for where
Matthew
you
pulling
landed,
off some kind of swindling over there.
Listen,
seriously. We all got paid under the table.
Last year was embarrassing. Last year, I'm just overdrafting Luna Bell in the first round. She finishes dead last in the Black Eyed Susan. I'm of course all over my boy Simplification, who actually ran a hell of a race in the Kentucky Derby last year. So I actually don't need I don't need to be embarrassed about that. But I think. Like you, Caleb, I think Messier or Tabo was my top pick. I think Messier was maybe my top pick last year, and that was a yikes. And so I went back to the drawing board this year, and I kind of got a better sense of what you guys might be doing earlier. So rather than trying to reach, I just went with my gut and Angel of Empire, and we'll see. I really like this horse a lot. Obviously, Pennsylvania bred for Cox, and I just. We'll see if he can get the distance and can bring it home. We'll have to deal with some traffic trouble, but it's going to be an interesting race because I don't think anybody is really firmly set on what's going to happen with this pace setup on Saturday. Everybody seems to have different horses that are going to be on the lead, different pace scenarios, hot, moderate, slow. So it's going to be anybody's decision, and it's going to be. I saw somebody on Twitter say it's a real jockey's race, and I have to agree with that. It does feel like if the right jockey just gets aggressive or kind of knows the type of ride to give. Gino, you always talk about you want to see jockeys who are aggressive.
Yep.
And it feels like this could be a race where that really pays off.
Yeah, and like with the Super Bowl, we were talking about it. When you experience it the first time, it's a little bit different, right? When you hear people talk about the Super Bowl, like the timing of the game, how different it is when they come out to warm up, and then all the stuff that happens afterwards. You have the national anthem, you have another song, and then you have a bunch of announcements. It's like 45 minutes before, and then the same thing at halftime. There's not the same sort of flow for some of these riders that come out there the first time you're there, and then there's 90 minutes in between races, right? And you got the walkover, and you hear the music's playing, and you see the crowd, and you're like really thinking about everything for a little while. Yeah, it's got to be a big moment for people that are there for the first time, right? It's for me. My voice is squeaking as I'm talking about it right now, so you can hear like I'm already getting out a little bit.
This is why horse racing is good, because everybody does different things. I would have took a nap.
Yeah,
that's what that's what Montana did during the Super Bowl, right? He just went in and took a nap in the locker room. The horses can't take naps, and they it's going to be something else on Saturday. I know all of us are busy with different stuff. Caleb, let everybody know what you're doing, because you and the guys at On the Wrong Lead are having a bunch of stuff coming out the next couple of days. I know with the various pick six sequences, etc.
Yeah, so you can catch myself, Josh, and Mark for On the Wrong Lead Thursday and Friday night, 7:30. So tomorrow we'll be covering the Oaks card, some of the stakes. And Friday we'll probably be doing some instant reactions and counting our money, hopefully, or counting our tears otherwise. And then, previewing some Saturday racing action. So you can find us on YouTube On the Wrong Lead, or on Twitter at @wrong_lead.
Awesome. Always enjoy popping on. One of my favorite things to do, and I say this sincerely, is I get done recording Capping the Card, typically on a Thursday night, and I'm exhausted, and I've not paid attention to what anybody says about anything, because I hate to take in outside information before I handicap and record something. But then I'm like everybody else. The second I'm done recording, I want to know what everybody else thinks about the races and how it compares to what I've just said, to see if I'm a freaking idiot or if I maybe know what I'm talking about, because there's safety in numbers. And so one of my favorite things to do is I get done capping the card. I'm exhausted, and I always pop on the Wrong Lead. I always love listening to you guys, and always enjoy the discourse. And then I usually find myself drinking either a little bit of bourbon or a little bit of tequila to go along with it. So, yes. So, Gino, you have about 70 million things going on. We need a whole nother podcast to talk about all the podcasts you have going on, but let the people know where they can find you and what's going on this weekend.
Yeah, it's me, Gino B, on Twitter, and I'm excited about the Derby podcast that I'll be putting together. Oaks Day and Derby Day. Yep. All three of you gentlemen are a part of that. I have done 15 out of the 17 interviews that I have. 2 more to go. You guys coming up a little bit later on. We're going to talk Pat Day Mile. I've got one coming with Chris Larmy. We're going to talk Turf Classic. Nice. Caleb talked with me yesterday. We talked about Derby City, the Distaff Mile.
Distaff Turf Mile.
Distaff Turf Mile.
Right.
Yep, that's what we did yesterday. So I will have 17 interviews, everybody talking about a different race. So we'll all handicap a different race. So it won't all just be Derby stuff. But then at the end, everybody gives a couple minutes on who they like in the Derby. So you'll get all the Derby stuff from them. But while you're handicapping all the undercard stuff for Friday and for Saturday, all of those stakes races we've got covered for you. I think there's 16 of them, and we've got a different guest for each one.
Love it. Sniper, going in circles, big Mondays. What else do you got? You got anything else going on, or are you just going to be tweeting out live reaction?
That too. Always a live reaction. But yeah, we're probably going to put out something probably tomorrow. We had Spaces with Game of Silks people going on.
Nice.
So we're kind of doing our thing. Derby week, it's busy. Everybody's busy. All of the analysts are busy, and we're no different. So it's going to be a fun weekend. I can't wait.
Just hustling. Well, listen, thank you guys so much for doing this. This is always a blast. We're going to come back. We're going to do this in 2 more weeks for the Preakness, and we're going to come back and do it in 3 more weeks after that for the Belmont. We got to keep it going, and you're my guys for this sort of thing. So thank you so much. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at the handle @FailToMenace. This is where I will be posting everybody's teams and results, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Hopefully nobody has a negative point total for their team. Somebody may have had that happen to them last year in the Derby. No names will be mentioned.
Woo! I had the exacta.
Yeah, you had the exacta. That's some bullshit. If I can. So anyway, well, that being said, make sure to check us all the stuff. I have capping the card for the Oaks. I was joined by Chase Sessions. We went through race 1 through 13,
Nice.
top pick, top value play for that, and then on Friday morning, my capping the card will drop for Derby Day with Sarah El Badwi. She and I will go race 1 through 14, all of the picks, top pick, top value play for all those races. So thank you all. Really appreciate it. Hope everybody out there watching, commenting, thank you so much for engaging with us throughout the night. Hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you cash all your tickets on Kentucky Derby Day. And until next time, friends, my name is Matthew DeSantis, wishing you a great and profitable day at the races and reminding you it's now post time.